Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here. Over the last year, I've been developing a game for the web browser. I've been recording updates every time I add a feature and compiled them in this video. So join me as we review the progress over the last year for my game. Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here, and welcome to the devlog of my browser game, which is a turn-based multiplayer strategy game in the likes of For the King or the old school Final Fantasies if they were multiplayer. I'll show you what I've been working on for the last 3 months, and we'll talk about what else there is to be done in the next future days. So here we start in the lobby, and since it's a multiplayer game, there is a lobby. You can see the names of the people who are here. Right now, the names are just randomly generated, and I haven't made the authentication yet, but in my previous game, I've done such a thing, so I'm not too worried about that now. Um, for the identities of players and stuff, I'll work on that later. What you can do is create a game, or you can refresh the list of games. So we could create a game. We don't even need to name it right now because there's no validation. And once you've created a game, there can be multiple parties in the game. And the idea is that each adventuring party would be made of multiple characters, which could be controlled by either one person or multiple different people could each control their own character. And then these parties would be racing against each other to see who could get to the end of the dungeon first. So if we create a party here, you could name your party if you wanted to. And if you try to create more parties, you are not allowed to do so. And dismiss the errors there. You can leave a party, you can create a party once again. And if I were to go to a different window here to refresh the list, this is already from before, so you can join that game. I could either join the party, and now there's multiple people in the party. No one has a character yet. Or I could create a competing party and create my own character here. Let's go back over here, and we'll create 3 characters. 3 is the maximum. You cannot create more than 3. Party is currently full. And when everyone in the party is ready, or when everyone in the game is ready, the party will start. So let me actually just leave the game with that person. All right. So once you're in the game, you can see your characters here, and if you click on them, you can see down here the details of what they are. Everything's a warrior right now, so they all have the same details, but you could choose different classes in the end. And we can look at the inventory, which is what I've been working on the most, which is the item generation. So we have all these different items, and today what I was working on is the comparison. So if I click on this bow here, this is a deadly recurve bow of structure, and I'm currently wearing a pointy stick in my main hand. Of course, the pictures are placeholders right now. So the pointy stick, I can come and hover it, and if I unhover it, it goes back to the detailed item. So you can see that hovering takes priority, and then if you unhover it, it goes back. And if I were to hold shift, I would compare it to the offhand if offhand was available. But since it's a two-handed ranged weapon, holding shift does nothing. So we will cancel that. We'll go try to find one that actually is one-handed. You can change the page with either the previous next or the keyboard, and if you hold it down, you can see it just goes super fast. And you can see my CPU is going to spike when I do this because it's not the most efficiently implemented thing, but here they go. You can see as we hover by, it tries to hover them all. Let's get a one-handed here, a morning star. So here, if I hold down shift, it goes to my offhand, which is the stointy pick instead of the pointy stick. So you can see the name change where did it go? There it is. And even if you hold shift and then click on it, it still stays as the alternate comparison. And then if you let go, it will go back. So it's pretty cool. You can hold shift, cancel it. Well, now I'm not hovering that, but you get the idea. Actually, let's try it with the hotkeys because there's hotkeys too. Every number is the hotkey, so you can play this game all with the keyboard. Since you're racing to go as fast as possible, the keyboard is essential. That is what I've been working on so far. You can see it tells you the damage types for the weapons. The equipment generation took a really long time, like about a week, but it's very customizable now, so it would be easy if I wanted to add new types of weapons, new categories of weapons, different attributes and such. One other thing is the character sheet. So up here it would say your character's name, if you had one, but I didn't name this character. It tells you what class they are. and it adds up all their attributes from their inherent attributes, which is decided when the character is created, or if you level up, your inherent attributes would go up, like it's your base HP and such, plus everything that is equipped. Now, equipping and unequipping is not yet implemented. I think that we'll get to that in the next week or so, but yeah, basically, I'm just loving that fact that I can press shift a bunch of times and see the alternate comparison weapon. The comparison, of course, isn't done because you should see, like, in red and green letters what's worse and what's better about this item. And even possibly up here, it could show you the different stats that equipping it would give. But I'm actually not sure how I'm going to do that, if I'm just going to show it on the weapon or up there or not. And to test this, I've just been using this thing. So you just click run all the tests, and it just creates a party for you real quick. So you just get in here and you can test it without having to click everything to set up a game yourself. But that is basically what we got so far. So, you know, stay tuned for updates. And with that being said, this has been Mike Silverman, and I'll see you later. Goodbye. Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here, and welcome back to the devlog number 2 for my roguelike racing turn-based role-playing in the browser multiplayer game. In this episode, I'll show you the implementations for equipping items and some other cool things that I've been working on this week. So, as we can see already, the paper doll here has some improvements, and whenever I hover an item, it shows in white border which item I'm hovering, and with a dark blue background which item I'm comparing to. And if I were to click on the item, it's going to turn into yellow, and then it will stay even if I'm not hovering it. If I click again, it will become unselected, and then you can see the hovering effect here. And since I'm hovering this rotted stick, which is an offhand, and it's comparing it to the mud-soaked branch in the main hand, I can hold shift. You can see if I click it here, it prompts you to hold shift. And if I were to hold shift, it will compare it to itself in this case. But basically, if there's an alternate slot that an item could be compared to, holding shift will compare it to the alternate slot. Since you can't compare something to itself, or you could, but that's meaningless, it just doesn't show anything in the comparison slot. So another example of that could be, if I find a ring here, we hover over the rabbit's ring of brilliance, and we are now considering the rabbit's ring of brilliance. If I click on it, now I have these options, and it will stay there even if I stop hovering it. So show that again. See, hover, go away, not there, go there, click it. Now it stays. And we're seeing that it is comparing it to the rubber band, which is over here. Now, if I hold shift, it will compare it to the milk carton seal, and we are now shown that we're comparing it to the milk carton seal because the background is changing up here. And we can see different stats and all that. So if I want to actually equip this, I will get 4 evasion and 4 intelligence. If we look at the evasion right now, we only have 1. That's coming from the plastic lay over here. And we also have, I think, no intelligence. Yes, we have absolutely no intelligence. So if we were to equip this by either pressing 2 on the keyboard or equipping it by clicking it, we will now see that our intelligence has gone up to 4, our evasion has gone up to 5, and not only that, but we are now considering the rubber band because we equipped this item, we took the item from what was already equipped, and now that's the one we're holding. So if I were to keep clicking 2, we see it switching back and forth, we see the stats changing back and forth, and you can hold it down and do this, which is a lot of fun, but sends also a lot of packets to the server, so you probably don't want to cause too much lag by doing that. Although it is a really small packet, so you could actually do this like as fast as this. Probably would not actually bog down the server. Anyway, that is equipment. I can hold shift and I can uh, equip to the offhand slot. We see that changing, or the alternate slot. Ring, so you got 2 rings. And that is all pretty cool. Right now we cannot convert to a shard. We cannot drop a weapon yet. That's not implemented. All right, let's go back over here. We can notice that there is a red item, and that is the newspaper hat. The newspaper hat, if we click on it, is in red because we do not meet the requirements, and that is why the requirement shows here in red, 2 dexterity. We only have 1 dexterity. It also highlights it up here so you can see that. And because it is equipped, normally you wouldn't be able to equip this, but there is a situation where you could equip it if you had an item that gave you 2 dexterity, you equipped the hat, and then you remove the item that gave you 2 dexterity, then you could be stuck in this situation where you're wearing something that you never should have been able to equip, or you're no longer able to equip. In which case, it should not give you its stats, and we can see that even though this gives +1 intelligence, we actually have 0 intelligence. I guess I took off that int ring. Yeah, I'm just wearing the original rings. Okay. Yeah, so this does not give its 1 intelligence. It also does not give its 1 armor class. We have 0 armor class right now. But what were to happen? Well, first of all, yeah, let's put on something that gives us dexterity, and we should see that the stats do update. So let's go find something that gives dexterity. I didn't pre-plan this, so we're gonna have to see. Okay, this gives 1 to all core attributes. This shield here. So dexterity is a core attribute in this game, so we'll equip that. Now the newspaper hat is in blue, and we do have 2 intelligence, 1 because of the 1 to core attributes. Intelligence is also a core attribute, and 1 from the newspaper hat. And we have 7 armor class because the shield has 6 armor class, and the newspaper hat has 1 armor class, and we do indeed have the 2 dexterity requirements. So now let us unequip the shield. Boom. Unable to equip the hat, or rather, well, we wouldn't be able to equip it if it wasn't already equipped. We'll show that. It's also not giving us the stats anymore. So we're going to unequip it, and now we cannot equip it. It is disabled. And even if you were to press the hotkey, you do not meet the requirements to equip or use that item. Sorry. Okay. And since we are focusing this item, or we're considering it, it's showing us that even though this is the slot you could put it in, you wouldn't be able to equip it. So it's in red. We'll cancel it, and that red stuff goes away. Another interesting edge case would be with two-handed items. So if I were wearing 2 one-handed things like a shield, here let's get the shield on, and we got the one-hander, what would happen if we were to equip, for example, this deadly maul of the sky, which is, as you can see, is two-handed. So what should happen is these items would both equip or unequip. So let's equip it. And now we are considering the mud-soaked branch. So the way two-handeds work in this game is they actually equip to your main hand, and when they equip, they unequip both items you are wearing. So also, now if we were to equip a one-handed in the main hand, of course it would switch spots with this. So we can equip the mud-soaked branch back, we can equip the maul back. But what if we were to put something in the offhand? Well, that should unequip the main-handed deadly maul of the sky. So let's go find some offhand thing. Actually, we could have used that mud-soaked branch. Let's use it. So we just have to hold shift, hover the offhand, equip this, and boom, we are now swapped with the deadly maul of the sky. And we can do it like that. And if we hold shift, we can swatch back and forth. We can switch back and forth. And you can see that the stats are changing up here. Very cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I guess one other thing would be the view equipment option. So since you can play all of the keyboard, you would think like, well, how do I unequip these equipped items? I don't want to bring my mouse up here, click it, unequip it. So that is what this is for. You can use 2, press 2. Now we're looking at all our equipped items, unequipped items, equipped items, unequipped items. Equipped items, number 3 to select the rubber band, number 2 to unequip it. Hold shift to hover the offhand slot, 2 to equip it into the offhand slot, and we come back over here, we unequip it, unhold shift to put it back where it was, and that is how it works. So yeah, this has been basically what's been going on. One interesting bug my brother found this morning when he was playing with this is that your HP, you can see that we have 10 out of 12. That is because we originally had 2 rings that gave +2 HP, the rubber band and the milk carton. Um, let's see, where's that milk carton seal? This is like when you pop the top off of a milk carton and there's that little thing you could pretend it's a ring. So let's equip that. So we originally had 14 out of 14 health, but if you unequipped one of these items, what he found was that your HP would have been uh, still what your old maximum used to be, but now it does reduce it correctly. And of course, equipping something with plus HP doesn't like heal you, so you can lose some HP if you unequip something with HP, but that's how it works in Diablo and other similar games. So that is all good. Not everything is perfect here yet. Not all the stats actually like add up to anything. Like strength doesn't do anything, for example, but that'll be easy enough to implement. Moving forward, I think I'm going to start trying to get some 3D stuff going on here so that when you actually look at the dungeon room right now, it's just the data about what's there, but you could actually maybe see some 3D models and stuff. But for that, I'm going to have to learn Bevy, the Rust game engine, and could take some time, but I did get this guy made me an example of how to interoperate the U. This is the U YEW, like the tree, front-end framework for Rust and WebAssembly. And I got an example of how that can communicate with Bevy. So we can use the UI for the web plus the very cool entity component system of Bevy. So if that doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. But that's where we're headed, and it's probably going to take a long time. So until then, I'll see you next time. This has been Mike Silverman. Goodbye. Alrighty, welcome back. So we looked into using Bevy for 3D graphics, and it turns out that it's pretty hard to make a modular character, and that's what I want to do is have the characters have different armor, weapons, and you should be able to see that on the 3D model. I got as far as animating some characters, which there's another video about that on the channel, but for now I'm just going to let Bevy cook until it is easier to make a modular character, because right now is kind of, I have no idea exactly how I would even go about that. So in the meantime, we've shifted focus to ability targeting, and we can see here we are in battle right now, and we've kind of changed the UI a little bit. We see that we're in the second room, and it is a monster lair, and there are these monsters here, which we can check out what they are. We've added a new stat called speed, which is derived by another new stat called agility. And this is how we know who is active. So the active person, it is their turn to make a move. And whoever is active can use their abilities. If you are not active, for example, if we come and focus this character, they cannot use their abilities because it is not their turn. Eventually, I'd like to have some sort of turn order displayed up here, like in other similar games. But right now, that turn order is kind of exists, but is not displayed. So we can focus characters. We have an active character. The active character can use abilities, and abilities can target different entities. So if I click on attack, since I've never targeted anything before, we target the default thing that the attack ability can target, which is an opponent and is the first opponent in the list. Then we can go to the next target. We could go to the previous target. We could go to the previous target again, and that would loop back to the bottom of the list. And we could just go like that. You can use the keyboard as well, and you can just do that. So then we could execute the move, but that doesn't do anything because all I've done is show how you can target things. And then you can change the targeting scheme. So the targeting scheme is like the AoE or single target. But since attack is only single target, that would do nothing. But if we click cancel, now remember, if I go to attack, it saves, or that was the last target we targeted, and it remembers that. So let's see what happens if I go to fire. Fire remembered that our last target was this opponent, but we could also change the targeting scheme because fire, kind of like in Final Fantasy, can be used either on a single target or on multiple targets. And if you switch back and forth, it does remember the last single target you selected. So if we go to next, and you can see it is switching between, but it is remembering your last single target thing. So also fire, I've made it so you can attack yourself with it just to test it out. I don't know if that'll be a permanent thing, but maybe you could get some sort of gear that gives you like heals you by taking fire damage. So maybe you would want to cast on yourself. And you can see here, same deal. So it remembers who you're targeting and it remembers the last single target you have selected. So let's keep in mind here that the last targeted enemy was this bottom one. And the last targeted friendly was the middle one here. And we can see that still remembers it. So let's say we go back to attack. It should remember the last enemy you targeted, and it does. And if we go to heal, which is only for your allies, it should remember the last ally you targeted, which is the middle one, which I'm pretty sure is correct, but I kind of actually just forget what just happened. But I'm pretty sure it was that one. And we could change the targeting scheme here. Now, let's say we were using fire. It remembers the last category we were targeting, so it went back to here. We change the targeting scheme. Then we say next target. It goes back and forth between enemies and allies. And then we switch the targeting scheme. It does remember both things. See that? So that is, was hard to implement. So I'm pretty pleased about that. There is one other targeting scheme that is called all. So the rainstorm, you could think, oh no, you just make the whole battlefield a rainstorm and everyone's getting wet and it's crazy. So we could switch, this is just area and now it's all. Single, area, all. Single, next, 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 area, all. And it remembers the last single thing you targeted. So that's pretty much it for this time. And I had to basically, I wrote the code for targeting once and then realized it was wrong and completely redid it. And this is the result. This is exactly what I wanted it to do, is to remember your targets, even when you switch between different targeting modes, or what I call a targeting scheme. And now I have it. So, it is pretty awesome. Next up on the list, I do have some other features I want to implement, but before that, what I kind of need to do is have two of these windows, one for another party member, so I can make sure that actually this character and this character, if they're controlled by different players, right now they're all controlled by one player and there's only one player in this game. But let's say if you had another character, they should be able to see these targets changing, and that is how it is implemented, and I think that is how it is working, because actually the client doesn't update the targets at all unless you're just selecting the ability. At first, when you select the ability, the client does kind of assume that that would work. But every time you change targets like this, the update is actually coming from the server, so that update is being sent to every connected socket, and it should be displaying on these characters, but since I'm not 100% certain, that is probably going to be my next move, is to set up two of these testing windows. This is called Cypress. Cypress is a end-to-end testing, I guess, a framework or library. But it's a great utility that lets you drive the web browser. Unfortunately, they don't support multiple windows, so you'd have to do some hack to create multiple windows, and that is what I'm gonna be aiming for, so I can confirm that the multiplayer aspect of being able to see your allies selecting their targets, and then you can say, hey, why are you targeting that one? Or, nice, I would also target that one as well. And you can communicate with your allies and have that little visual feedback of what your allies are targeting. And that's about it for this time. With that being said, this has been Mike Silverman from the Snowden YouTube channel. Thanks for checking in with the progress of this game, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day. Goodbye. Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here, and welcome back to another devlog about the game that I'm making. In the last devlog, we looked at ability targeting, and we said that we were going to try to set it up so we could have two windows that were running multiple clients so you could see the multiplayer aspects of the game working. And I was able to do that with help from a blog post by Gleb Bamutov. Hopefully I say that right. He is like an expert in the Cypress testing program, and he made this hack where you can actually run two separate Cypress browsers, and this is a Firefox browser over here, and this is a Chrome browser over here, and they're running multiple, well, they're both connecting to the game server and each running their own client, and the blog post actually talked about how you can make sure that this one waits for certain things to happen before this one does, and you're going to kind of see how that works in a second. So I know it's really small screen, and don't worry, we are going to zoom in later once we start getting into the other features that we worked on in this devlog. But for now, we're going to look at both of them. So all we got to do is click Run All Tests on both of these. And you're going to see that this one could not do its test because the game name that I wanted to create was already a game name. So we'll try again. This one's not doing anything because it is actually waiting for a message from this one, which is a separate WebSocket server that is only for the testing that is helping these two communicate. So what happened there was really fast, but basically this one created a game. This one waited to get the message that the game was created, which was sent by this one. Then it refreshed the game list, clicked on the join button, and waited for this player to create characters. This one created a third character, so they actually own this one. And you can see they're focusing that one because that is their first character that this player is controlling. This player over here controls this character, and that is why they started focusing on this one. And this is the active character. It has the most speed, or it was sorted for speed, and that's why it gets to go first in this battle. Oh yeah, also the other thing that happened is they both clicked ready to explore, and that was kind of like instantly. We'll watch it again, but it goes pretty fast. So this, of course, you have to do this one second, because or you have to make sure the game's left. You can't make a game of the same name that already exists, and that one was still in the game. Here we go. They click ready to explore. It flashed there for a second, but anyway, once they're ready to explore, it goes to the next dungeon room, which I made it always have monsters. So we got some random monsters in here, and we'll full screen the Firefox one. Okay, so is this player's turn? They're active, and just like last time, if I select this one, I can't do moves, but if I select this one, I can do moves. And the main focus of this progress update, which actually took a really long time, I'm not exactly sure how long, but I'll post it up on screen once I edit this. But yeah, I got sick. My whole family got sick for like 2 weeks, and this was also a really tough problem to solve. And the problem I was focusing on is what happens when you actually use your ability. So we know we can target abilities, but what happens when you actually execute the ability? Well, a lot of things, it turns out, because you want to animate the character looking at the thing it's going to attack. It has to animate walking over to that thing. It has to swing its weapon at the certain moment that it hits the enemy. That enemy should show a hit recovery animation, and maybe some floating numbers would come out. Their damage bar would be reduced. By the way, we got some damage bars now, so that's looking a little better. It's all temporary, of course, but I was, you know, it's kind of hard to read the green text and the blue text. So now I got the bars. Should look a little better. Um, yeah, so they show a hit recovery animation. Maybe you get a little log out in the combat here. Um, and yeah, that's what's going to happen. We also have the turn order bar up here. It is a little buggy because you actually should have multiple cards for characters. Now there's only one. It sorts the it sorts the turn order each time. Anyway, let's see. We're gonna look under this character. You're gonna see what animations it's doing, and then you will see this one get attacked, and it should show a hit recovery at the exact moment. So here we go. We'll execute. It's turning to face. It's approaching the target. It's swinging. It swung and it hit. This is in a hit recovery animation. It's got two weapons. It swings again. It looks like they evaded. Very nice. And then they return to their home position. Once they're done returning to their home position, it will pass it to the next character. And you can see we automatically had our focus shifted to this character because we were focusing this character when its turn ended. So it kind of the game figures out like, well, you probably want to focus the next character. Unless I was focusing like this character over here, then, well, it wouldn't try to steal your focus away from what you were intentionally focusing something else. Also, if you have the inventory open, it will also not change your focus because it figures like you weren't the one who clicked the move. So I can show you that actually. So let's unfull screen this, go over to this one, and we see that this person did get the updates. They have the combat log and all that. So we're targeting our own character in this window. Let's target this character. So right now, if this turn ended, it would shift the focus here. But let's open the inventory. We're just start browsing their items. Of course, you can't equip their items because you don't own this character. But let's say we're just like looking around, and in the meantime, we don't care what they're doing. Like whatever, they can take their turn, and it should not steal our focus away. So let's have this window attack. We'll attack the same one. So turn to face, we're approaching, we're swinging until we hit. We should hit. They go to hit recovery. We rebound our thing or recover. We swing again. We return to our home position and we pass focus down. So now this character should still be focusing this one because we had the inventory open, and indeed we do. So to take our turn, we have to close the inventory. We actually control Lieutenant Surumi, so we will click on them and we are able to attack. And here you're going to see a little bugginess. So we are the current player first in the turn order. It says Rebecca is next, but that's not actually the case because of the way it sorts. This character is going to get to go twice in a row. So we execute, we're swinging in. Of course, you can't do another attack while you are already attacking. And there we go. We're turned to our home position. We pass the turn. It sorts the turn order again. We actually end up in the front again due to the way it's sorting it. I will have to adjust that in the future. Let's try to kill this thing though. So we'll take another turn. See, we turn to face, we approach, we swing. Damage activates. We swing our offhand. We kill them. They have a death animation that flashed kind of quick, but you can also see they died here. Of course, them being dead doesn't really do anything yet. So if we go back over to this character whose turn it is, and we saw we just switched focus automatically, we can still attack this. I didn't execute. We can still attack this already dead thing, and we'll still see that it has combat log for it. Being dead means nothing. It just means you have 0 HP. But hopefully in the future, they will be not targetable by damaging things, but they could be targeted by a revive spell. And when everything is dead on a team, you get to see what items they dropped and what experience points you got and all that good RPG stuff that we want. And trying to think what else was included in this update. It took a pretty long time, kind of like last time with the targeting, how I kind of had to like rewrite. I had one idea of how to do it, wrote it. It was not meeting the requirements, so I had to rewrite the whole thing. I rewrote the sequence of how this works 3 times. Each time took me like a day or two. And in the beginning, I was just staring at my screen like, what am I gonna do? Like, I have no idea. It was quite difficult to wrap my head around exactly, the step-by-step things of what should happen and what even did I want to happen. Like, when should it show the damage? Is it after your swing is done? Is it when the swing starts? It's actually kind of in the middle of the swing, right? The swing hits them and then it shows the damage, and then you like follow through your swing, and then you check if you have another swing queued up or if you have to go back to your home position. When should you pass the turn? Before you, like when your last swing is done, or when you go to the home position? I made it so that's when they go back to their home position. And yeah, one other consideration is that all these calculations actually happen instantly on the server. So the client could feasibly, like, you're racing to get the fastest time. So even though the client is showing you all these animations of what happened to make it look nice, right now you could just create a hacked client and send multiple ability execution requests and then just swing, 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 like instantly calculating and get the best time ever. So we'll have to come up with some way to have the server deny any requests while it knows the client is still animating because it would know how long the animations take and it would be like, all right, like it's too early for you to try to do your next move because the client should still be showing you the animations. And yeah, that's basically the gist of it. I mean, right now there are no animations. It just shows you what state they're in, and it sets a JavaScript timer to be like this animation is quote unquote done when the timer elapses. But later on, once we get Bevy working, it'll actually show the animation, and then however long that animation takes, when it finishes, it will send the message back to the UI, which is this here, and then it would know to process the next one. Yeah, moving forward, I think I'll probably try to see what happens when enemies die, and maybe when all the enemies are dead, um, allow the characters to try to ready up to go to the next room, possibly look at what loot they dropped, and also limit the targeting system so that you can't target something that is dead if it doesn't make sense that you would be able to do that. Which will require some modification of the targeting. So yeah, that has been this devlog, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good evening or night or day, whatever it is, and I'll catch you next time. Goodbye. Welcome back to another devlog of the project, which is now titled Roguelike Racing, name subject to change. And it has been about 20 days since I last made a devlog, things kind of got away from me and I got deep into adding some features and reconfiguring a lot of the code in the game to make it more applicable to multiple situations. So it can be reused in different places and make it easier to make content down the line. And since that time, there's been a small play test with my brother and my friend, and we worked out a few bugs, and they requested some features and changes of the UI. So I don't know if you noticed, but the UI is a little bit different. The width is kind of limited here, and you can look at the patch notes here. So there's a lot of patch notes. This is the live version, so I actually have deployed and created a CI/CD pipeline where I can merge my code into the main branch on GitHub, and it will automatically build the game and deploy it to a server. So that's nice for getting changes out the door, and I just like to keep patch notes here. So if you go to this website, roguelikeracing.com, unless the URL has changed since I uploaded this video, then you'll be able to check it out and give it a play for yourself, see how you like it. I think I will be making a Discord for the game as well, but that's just not done yet. So let's get into some changes. So let's go ahead and get into a game here. Actually, I am showing you on the live game because my my development version is a little bit messed up right now because I'm working on some other stuff. But it'll all work out in the end. Let's get a party with 3 characters. You'll see that the game named itself Spooky Hill because I didn't put a game name in, and I'll name these characters so that we can actually. It looks a little weird. I don't have automatic naming for the characters yet. I don't know if I will. Anyway, let's get into the game here, and you can see we got some graphics here. We say the room is empty except for a door. The UI bar at the top is now has its own home because it was getting in the way of some other elements which you'll see in a moment. And the styles aren't final. Obviously, these have like double borders on them. But you can see that right now in this empty room, it's highlighted in yellow because that's our current room. And the next coming up is a monster lair, a monster lair, a monster lair, and a question mark. And when we get to that question mark, it will reveal what that room is, just like in For the King. You have the same kind of features when you go into dungeons there. I guess we'll just ready up and we'll be in a battle, and we can see the turn order is it's part of that top bar, and the turn order has been changed so that people don't go twice in a row. And this was actually took me like a whole day to figure out. So I was getting too complicated with it. I was like, okay, if the character went and the next character in the turn order is then you would have to like store a flag to see if they were just the character who just went, and if they were, don't let them go, but then also subtract their movement so that they don't go when you sort it again. But yeah, after quite a few hours tinkering with the formula and testing it out, I had like a spreadsheet up and I don't know, trying to figure out what to do. I kind of settled on this idea where no matter how fast you are, you should never go more than 3 times as fast as the slowest character. So it can't get too out of hand. In the playtest, people were definitely just only stacking speed items, and while that is fun to break the game and such, I want to incentivize different types of strategies in the game. So yeah, so speed will make you go first if you have a higher speed, and then it will refill your movement up to 3 times as fast as the slowest character. Then also after sorting you by speed, to make sure you don't go twice in a row, it just sorts you by your entity ID. Everything has an entity ID in the game. So you see this is entity ID 32, which is strange because why isn't it 1? I guess, I don't know. Maybe their equipment got made first. Whoever really looked into that, you can see these have entity ID 63 and such. So if you're tied for speed, you'll just get sorted by entity ID and you'll just take turns. Because right now everyone has speed 1 in this battle. Yeah, this one has speed 1. That's kind of weird that it stays highlighted. Oh, because it's not re-rendering that element because it's the exact same number. That's cool. Very efficient. Yeah, that's how VDOM, virtual DOM, works. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you could look up React.js, or this is the U framework I mentioned before. Anyway, it knows that this isn't changing, so it doesn't have to repaint it. So that's why it stays highlighted. Now we're getting off topic, but I thought that was interesting. With this new speed thing, I ran into this funny problem where the monsters went first, and I was like, wait a minute, if the monsters go first, well, first of all, they went first, but they never like even moved. It was like their turn and they weren't doing anything. So I had to kind of rewrite what happens when monsters go first, that they would actually take their turn, send it to the client, and you would animate it. on the client, and then they could actually kill you, right? So it is possible for them to end the game if you went in, you were too slow, and it was like super fast mobs, they could kill you. So we made that work. Anyway, let's go ahead and attack because now things can actually die, and when they die, they won't get their turn. Which before, like everything was dead, it could still attack, and it only mattered if you like all died. Uh, Actually, I think in the last devlog there was no death conditions, but yeah, now when you die, it will say a death message to you, and you'll get prompted to leave the game. Also, it will send a message to every other party in the game that you wiped, so they can be like, "Oh, the other party wiped, like we have a chance." Um, anyway, let's take these guys out. Also, you could see like I could press next target and it's doing nothing. I don't know if you can hear me clicking that because there's no more valid targets for attack. They're dead, so they can't be targeted before, that wasn't implemented. But yeah, let's go ahead and kill this guy. He gets his turn. And now we see some items have dropped, and you could take the items right here. You could hover them. You could see what they are, if you want to take them or not. If you want to pick it up with a different character, just select a different character that you're focusing. If I am this character, you know what? I think I just discovered an interesting bug in this. Oh, well, actually, I don't know, because I own all these characters. I just wondered, like, no, I don't think this is the case. I was like, wait, could you focus a character you don't own and pick up an item for them and force them to have items in their inventory they don't want? But I don't think so. Anyway, we could open the inventory. You could see when you open it, you could also still take from the side here. It shows you which slot it would go in. Like right there, it's highlighting that goes in the ring slot. But let's take these items here. And one of these items is a consumable item called the HP Auto Injector, which is basically like a health potion. And notice that we are not in combat anymore. There's no battle going on, but I could still use this consumable. So if I open the inventory, select an HP Auto Injector, you could see that it can target friendly targets. It can be used in an area. I don't believe that. It's got to be false, right? Hold on. Oh, I forgot to change that. That's hilarious. Let's see what happens. Invalid targets provided because that person has full health, I think. All right, let's just heal this one then. Yeah, it's funny. I left the targeting scheme on because I was changing. You see how it has like different colored. This is a green arrow because it is healing you, so it's just supposed to communicate that. So invalid targets provided. You can't heal a target with full health. But yeah, so what's interesting about this is using a consumable is kind of like using a combat ability. So I had to extract these into something called a combat action, which kind of encompasses both using a consumable item as well as using an ability like attack, which is the only other ability right now. But what they have in common is they can both target things. There's certain targets they can't be used on, and they could either end your turn or not end your turn. There's a lot of stuff that attacking and actually using an item kind of has in common. So I consolidated that into one type of code here. Also, when you use the consumable, let's see, it goes away from your inventory. So I had two to start off with. Everyone starts with two. See, they start with two. They start with two. This person picked up this item. Let's drop it for the next demonstration, actually. Yeah, when you use the item, of course, it goes away from your inventory like it's supposed to. And let's see. Yeah, so what about dropping the items? Like anyone could click this. Like in your screen, you could click it, or I could click it, and we could both try to click it at the same time. So it was leading to this bug where the server would send out this message to all the clients and say, hey, there's like this bow on the ground, right? And it's on its way to me, but it reaches the other person first. So they see the bow, they're like, oh, sick, a bow, let me click it, and they click it. Then the message gets to me. So then now I see the bow is there before I get the message that they took the bow. And then I could try to take the bow, but the bow's not there anymore. So it gets kind of all desynchronized. So for this problem, I actually got some help from my brother for this idea, which basically, once the items drop, it sends a message to everyone. And if everyone sees the item, or when you see the item on your client, you send a message to the server and you say, I see this item. And the server's like, all right, client one has seen the item. And then it waits until all the clients have seen the item. And once everyone has seen the item, then it will accept a request for you to take the item. But if you try to click take the item before everyone has reported that they've seen it, that they have seen it, then it'll say, oh, like you can't take that item yet. And that actually worked out pretty well. So everything's been synchronized. in that regard. Some combat actions, such as using an auto injector, can be used out of combat, as you saw, and you don't have to wait for your turn to do it. So like in combat, only people whose turn it is can do something. But out of combat, character A and character B could both like take out auto injectors and inject themselves or inject each other, and you could do it at the same time. There's no like waiting for anything to happen. So that was a little interesting to get the animations working, to see like how that should work, and getting into getting into the details of that is probably beyond this, but yeah, basically simultaneous use of actions out of combat has been implemented, and that's pretty cool. So the other thing, I think we have to actually like play out this game a little bit to show you, but let's if we're gonna do that, equip some items here, because we have to get to the end of the floor. Take out this bow, it probably does a little more damage, and all right, let's try to kill the rest of the monsters here, because there is another feature in the mysterious question mark room that we have to get to. Oh yeah, jagged. That does more damage. Let's get this. Maneuverable gives you speed, so we'll take it, and let's give this character an item as well. Let's equip the ring. Let's go to this one. Let's equip the bow, and I think we want this ring, so we select it, hold shift to hover the other thing here, press 2 to equip it, cancel, close the inventory, ready to explore, and we kill the rest of the, yeah, see, he one-shots them with that bow. I think the other guy missed. Oh yeah, we'll just take all this stuff. Now, we're ready to explore. We're going to see this question mark turns to a different type of room. It is a staircase. Whoa, graphics. Okay, so now you have the decision as a party. You could vote to stay or you could vote to descend. And since I'm the only player in the game, um, we got some randomly generated names here. Then whatever I decide will be. So if I vote to stay, it will have you play through the floor again, and you could grind up some loot, and then you get the staircase again at the end. Or you could descend, and you will start to fight stronger and stronger monsters. Now, if you descend, you will get a message in the combat log, and every other party will also see that you descended. So let's see that. We vote to descend. Party descended to floor 2. If there was another party in this game, which there isn't, but if there was, all those parties would see that you descended, and I just never named my party, but it would say the name of the party. So they'd be like, oh, the beaters are getting down there, whatever you named yourself. So I think that's it, and I'm sure I forgot some stuff. Oh, actually, there is one thing. This is like a tiny little thing, but let's unequip all these items so we could see. Oh, this one little feature my friend wanted. Um, Unequip the newspaper hat, drop it on the ground. Oh, I can't see the items because it's a battle. Anyway, basically, you can open your inventory and you can scroll through it. Oh, you can see it. I'm using the mouse wheel to scroll the item list. And someone wanted that, my friend Brian, so put that in the game. Hopefully it makes things easier for people. The UI is definitely not fully done yet. I know that you should be able to press like enter and escape and stuff to go back and to accept moves and all that. But that will be later, because right now what I've been deep into is working on the formulas for what happens when you attack. Because right now, obviously, like attack and auto injector, there's formulas and it does something. But uh, what I realized once I started trying to implement a move called fire, where you cast fire on some enemies, you could either cast a group or a single target, is that a lot of the damage calculation can be procedurally calculated and should kind of be generalized between every combat action that does damage. So that formula turned out to be pretty in depth, and I've been spending a few days on that. Obviously, we don't know how to format time yet, but that's when we died, and we could leave the game. GG. Hopefully, next time we get to a deeper floor. And with that being said, I would like to thank you for following along with the progress of roguelike racing, name subject to change, and invite you to join the website and take a look at what we got going on. Get excited because we got more features coming, and I'll see you next time. So until then, goodbye. Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here, and welcome back to another devlog for roguelike racing. Today we're in version 0.5.0 of the alpha, and what we've done in this version is we've added some new abilities, and we've changed how the damage is calculated for abilities. So we have the fire ability and the healing ability, and we're going to get into the game, and we're going to take a look at what that actually does. And we got random character names now and random party names. So you don't have to input anything and it'll always be filled out. Right now we're using some Sword Art Online names that I selected from Wikipedia. Okay, so we are out of combat now and we have the healing ability, which can be used either in battle or out of battle. And you can choose different targets or you can heal everybody. And if you heal everybody, it will split the value between everyone and give you a little bit of a bonus depending on how many targets. So if you're targeting 2 targets, it will give you, I think, like a 15% total bonus and then split it. Or if you're splitting between 3 targets, it'll give you a 30% bonus and then split it. So you are kind of incentivized to split it up if you want to get more total damage or healing, and you don't need to specifically heal one target. All right, so let's get into a battle here. And we also have this other ability called Fire. So Fire is the same thing as healing, except it damages things. And because they're so similar, as I kind of alluded to in the last video, they have been combined, or the way that damage is calculated for all combat actions is now combined into one generic pipeline that the calculation will go through. So when you use any action, like fire or healing, well, I shouldn't say any action, but most actions that aren't too crazily specific, auto injector is actually separate right now, but they will calculate calculate their damage based on a lot of different things. So all these stats actually do something now, and I've removed one of the stats to just make things a little simpler. And now things that didn't do anything before actually do something. So focus will change your critical strike chance and critical strike damage multiplier against magical or when using magical combat actions. And dexterity already was accuracy, and now it adds critical strike chance, and all these things do things, which eventually I'll add tooltips for them so you can see what they do. But basically, they're all combined into this one calculate HP change function because it could be a damage or healing. So I just called it HP change because then you don't have to say damage or healing, which takes longer to write and think about. Yeah, so that actually took many days to write this whole kind of logic, and it's like very branching. It's like, is it magical? Is it physical? Does the enemy have a resistance to this particular element? And so on and so forth. But now, whenever I want to create a new ability, for example, if I wanted to make an ability called Blizzard, which does ice damage, it would be almost exactly the same as fire, except it would have the ice element, and you can choose every single aspect about it in the way that you set up the ability, and it will run through that function, which is pretty long. Well, it's multiple functions or that branch. So this is good. It set us up for making very many more different types of abilities in the future with not having to maintain separate things for each one. What I am doing separately, though, is the auto injectors because the way that they heal is based on the percent of your HP or MP total. And I didn't yet figure out a good way to make that fit into the way that the general function works. Maybe I will one day, but for now, since I'm probably not going to make like a third type of auto injector, maybe I'll make a hybrid one that does both. But even then, 3 separate functions, these aren't that long to maintain. It just like calculates their HP. And it's sometimes it's just not worth it to abstract something if it's small enough and specific enough. But for these, it definitely is worth it because there's going to be a lot of different things. Now, in this update, this like deployed version, attack does not conform to the pipeline, but I have been working on this for a few days now since I've deployed this, and now attack does go through that same pipeline in the version on my computer. This is the live version, so it doesn't work like that yet. But that makes things a lot better for like making tooltips and stuff. So right now it doesn't tell you what fire does when you select it. Like on my computer right now, this would show you a tooltip of the ability, and you can think about it a lot more. Because as you can see, the monsters actually are a little bit different now. They have different amounts of HP, so you could think like, oh, that has 9 HP, so I want to kill that first because it's easier to kill, and as soon as they're dead, they won't get their turn anymore. But you might think, wait a minute, it's a strong basilisk. So what does that mean? And we selected it. So it's got the yellow outline here, and we can look that this thing has 2 resilience and something. Uh, oh, only 1 vitality. Do these have any vitality? Well, anyway, you could see like it has resilience. That's resistance to magic. I think this is named wrong. I think I switched what magical and strong meant. But anyway, you could think like, oh, maybe I shouldn't use fire on this because it has more magic resistance, whereas this one has still more magic resistance. But you get the idea. You would look at their stats, and this one is undead, so undead will take damage from healing. So if I select healing, and oh, by the way, we have new hotkeys now. So W and E are for next and previous, just like they were for the change pages in the menu, and R or enter will execute. So we healed this undead thing and actually took damage, and we can finish it off with an attack if we don't miss. Well, there you go. So there also is, this allows you to make different types of enemies that have elemental properties or affinities. So if there's like a fire elemental and you cast fire on it, it will heal that instead of damage it. But if you cast fire on an ice type thing, then it'll do extra damage. Let's see if we get one of those ice things. There are more. There we go. Ice spider. Also, we look at the combat logs, like a little bit cleaned up here, but let's see. We've been hitting things for about 10 or 8 or 9 with fire, so let's see what it does. Not enough mana. Okay. Then we will open the inventory, take out an MP auto injector, use it, and hope we get more than 1 mana. Did not work. We'll just attack that guy. This guy has mana. We'll go there. And see, it did 16 points of damage. So they are weak to that. How would you know that besides reading the word ice in it? Well, hopefully here we'll have like a better. This has been like from day one. Um, so this is a little bit crusty, but we should have it showing you their elemental affinities there. So that's basically this version. It did take a few days, but we've laid the groundwork for a lot more abilities to come. And next, or right now, actually, like I have been developing since this version, we're getting the tooltips for the abilities and implementing weapon elemental damage. So I think I took this off, but yeah, this is physical, physical. This is a bug. This should say something like physical blunt or physical piercing. So certain type enemies will be weak to blunt, like in the game Diablo. Undead monsters are take 50% more damage against blunt, or they take 50% damage from slashing. So you'll have to think about what type of melee weapon you're using, or bow, and the weapons could also have an elemental property, and that is was actually implemented yesterday. But we'll cover that in the next devlog for the next update, more in depth. But until then, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye. In this episode, we have completely overhauled the UI, and I actually made a lot of progress that I forgot to document, or I neglected to, rather. I knew that I didn't do it about 2 months ago, which was my last devlog. So that update we'll have to go over in another time because the focus of this one is that the UI is a lot different now. The UI used to cover the entire screen, but since we needed 3D graphics, we needed to make the UI a lot smaller so that you could actually see the graphics behind the UI. So it's pretty simple right now. We just got this square. But what's nice about it is that the UI has been all moved, and it's all the same pieces as before for the most part. But they've just been changed their position and made to look a little bit nicer, I think. So we can go over it. We got the hovering of different characters still, but instead of it all being in one menu, it has its own menu here. And if you want to check it out in more detail, you can click on it and then it stays around. Then you could close it with escape or this button. I'll just press escape. Or you can just bring it over here. And of course, when you hover, hovering takes priority. So whichever one you select will stick around if you unhover it. But then you can click that one, click that again. It's kind of hard to see, but the focus character is highlighted in green. If I click on this, I could focus another character. And I can open the inventory with S. All the dedicated buttons have been moved to the top of the action menu, and all the things that could have one or more of itself have been brought down here. So we go over here, we could view the equipped items like before. We could look at our items and you can hover them and you can see if it compares it to what you're wearing and what slot that it would be wearing. If it's red, of course, you can't wear it. And you can change the pages to look at different pages of things. Now, if we drop some items on the ground, let's drop that on the ground. Let's drop this bow on the ground. Let's drop this dagger on the ground. And you can see the items on the ground are now starting to appear here. If I take one, it will disappear from there. If I hover it, it's showing me what I'm hovering. If I hold shift, of course, it can compare it to the offhand slot. And I have this little tooltip here because people are like, what is this shift here? It says hold to compare to the alternate slot. I don't know why it is so small width. We will have to worry about that at another time. Now, if we close the inventory, the items on the ground over here, this is how it would appear after the battle. Where if the monsters drop some items, you would see it like this, and you'd be like, oh, nice. And be like, what about that one over there? Let me click on it so it stays without me having to hold the hover over it. That one will stay. I can see that where you got a little bug here. I need to fix the yellow border there. Anyway, you can come over here. Maybe if you had to scroll up and down, you could. I didn't pick one that needed scrolling, but sometimes the text is really long and it won't go more height than this, so you have to scroll like that. And if you take the item, then it will disappear. Your action menu reflects that. If I click on this, I can also hit escape to stop looking at it. We can assign attributes now. I don't know if that was actually in the past update, but if you assign attributes, you can click these little plus icons. You can see what they actually do. So vitality increases hit points. We click on that, we get some more HP. You can actually see this character's HP is going up there. Let's try that. Yeah, see they got 28. Now we have no more attributes to assign there. You can select different characters up here, and you can see that the focus is actually changing here. So the focus button like that. And yeah, we can go back with escape. If you're ready to explore, you can click your own name like that, or you can press 1 to be ready to go. If there's more players in the game, their names would be there, and you would see them highlighted if they're ready. And now the monsters would be here. The turn order bar looks a little bit different. A lot of work to be done on this still to make it a proper turn order bar, like in For the King, but it looks a lot better now. And we can see who's taking their turn. It shows you whose turn it is like that. Then you can still target people the same way as before. And when you select your abilities, I think I didn't show that. When you hover your ability, it tells you what it does to the right. And if you select it, then it still tells you what it is. But then you get all like the action buttons as before. So you can change the targeting scheme. We can see that it is going from AoE or area target to single target. And you can also use the same hotkeys as changing pages to change targets. And you can change the targeting scheme again. Now, if I execute the attack right now, or the healing move right now, it won't do anything because the way that it goes through the steps is that it animates, or it so-called animates. Before, it would just say the name of what it was doing on a little element inside the entity's card. But since we're now going with 3D animations, it's going to be a 3D animation that completes and then says that it's done, and then it sends that message to the web UI part of the software, and then you'll get a message logged out, and it'll reduce your HP and say whose turn it is next and all that stuff. So yeah, that is incoming, but now we just kind of got the UI squared away so we can actually see what is going on in the 3D world, and that will be next to be worked on. And this is pretty much a huge milestone in the development of the game. It looks, I think, way better now. At least it looks way different, and big things to come. So with that being said, that is the devlog for today. And this has been Mike Silverman from the Snowden YouTube channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day. Goodbye. Seems like it's getting longer and longer between devlogs, and I think it's been about 5 months since I last reported in. But now we have 3D graphics. As you can see, we've got our characters displayed with 3D models, and I don't think this will be a feature in the full version, but you can rotate your camera around. Normally in a game like this, it would be fixed and it would follow you when you do moves and show certain angles. Um, well, let's see what we could do. So we can ready to explore, and we'll get the monsters spawned. That flickering was the models deleting themselves and coming back in, because on every room we want to just clear out the dead monsters. It's also deleting our own characters, which you wouldn't really do that because you would drag your friend's corpse along with you if they were dead. And later we'll show them walking to rooms, but now just kind of they appear. Um, okay, so we could do everything that we used to be able to do, and I don't think there was actually like implemented spells before, so we could target somebody. Um, oh, we don't have enough mana, so it's actually blurred out here, or it's disabled. So we'll just do normal attack. Let's attack the one of the low health ones. You can see they run over there, they swing their weapon, it actually does damage, and this model has a hit recovery. All the models are from Quaternius, which is a artist who gives free game assets to people. Let's go swinging over there. And I kind of adapted them. So not all the animations are matching. So for example, if we try to cast a spell, we have no animation, so it shows missing animation. We got the floating text. And the reason it's bigger when it's closer to us is because the way floating text works in the Bevy game engine, or the way I shouldn't blame Bevy for it. The way that I made it is that it's a so-called billboard. So that text is on a 3D object that always faces the screen. So it's not text like how this text is being made by the browser. It's actually something in the 3D world that is, it has like a farther away or closeness to it. So let's see. They died. We got some experience points. I don't even think there was leveling up last time. There was attribute assignment. I remember that, but we have their experience bar down here and it shows our level next to the portrait. We just take all these items, so we might need them for the further demonstration. And then we'll go ready to explore. We can't cast fire with that one, so we'll just attack. This person, they're a warrior, so let's see if we focus them for a second. They got the mud-soaked stick. It's a blunt weapon, so we are dealing more damage to the undead here. It doesn't even say. Oh, it tells you about healing magic damage them. But here we go. Piercing affinity, slashing affinity. So they take less damage from piercing, somewhat less damage from slashing, and blunt they take 25% increased damage to it. All right, whose turn is it? We can't take any actions because we're focusing Asuna, which it's not their turn. So let's focus Keita and let's bust out. The best way, unfortunately, the scavenger is there, but I think we'll just cast fire on everything. I was thinking I want to cast healing on everything, but healing, well, actually, that might be a good demonstration. So let's go for healing, target all, and execute. And you can see the green text for healing, but those are undead, so they took damage from being healed. Undead doesn't want to be healed. So Egil is a rogue, so they are holding butter knives, which are slashing weapons. We could see that. And we're gonna attack the scavenger. I think scavenger has, yeah, they don't like slashing. So we're gonna go target them. And eventually I'd like to be able to click on characters to target them. Right now you just use the next and previous over here. So it's good for playing with the keyboard, but I think it's not very intuitive for people who are used to games where you can click on things to target. So we won, we got some more experience points, we could take some items again, and it's still the first floor, so we don't really need to equip anything. But everything else is basically the same how we saw it. If we got to the last floor, we could descend to it and go to deeper floors. It would send a message to other parties and all that good stuff. And the reason why this all took so long is a few things, but one is that the characters here, even though this is all one kind of 3D model here, it took a while to figure out how to make them modular. So if I wanted to, which I am not doing right now, but the way the code's set up is this head could be switched out with this head, this body could be switched out with this body, and so on and so forth, so that when you actually go to equip your items, which this character has nothing to equip, but like if you would put on these rags and equip them, if we had a 3D model for it, it would actually show it on their body, which that took a whole month to figure out how to do that. And I made a tutorial about it on the channel to take a look at if you want to do that in Rust with the Bevy game engine. And then the other reason why it took so long is because once I added Bevy to this app, I realized that Rust is probably not suitable for games in the web browser. And the reason is Rust, it takes a long time to compile, but also it just takes a long time, like more so when you're writing for WebAssembly. And I could show you that if I go to see my local version is this one. So let's refresh the page here. Let me just start up the local server for that. Okay, so we got this like loading animation, and we can see there's this game going on because even though this is on my local host, I told the code to use the live server as the server. So this is connecting to the same server that this game is running in right here. But let's see an example of what happens if we try to change something. So we see, let's just change this text here. So roguelike racing alpha 0.7.0, which was the older version, or this, no, I never showed you this version. There's yet another version, so hold on. But let's go to the code and let's find the welcome info. And here we can see this text. So let me zoom it in for you. Okay, so roguelike racing alpha. So you'd think like normally you would change some text, right? Let's just delete it and we'll save this and we'll see over here, it's building it on my local computer, just trying to update to show me the change. It says it's finished here. So it's finished, right? So let's go look at it. Here we're on the local host. It still says this text. So we'll wait. It reloads the app, even though it downloaded the WebAssembly, which was that little progress right there. It still had to wait a few seconds, and now we have our update. So imagine every time you want to change the code, it takes that long. I don't know exactly how long it was, but I'll count it in the video. I'll put it up on the screen for you, but it's just too long. Like you could feel that the so-called iteration time of how long it takes to see you update changing in the code, it just is untenable. Now with Bevy, if you're developing locally for, or I should say not for the web, then it is faster. You can use a thing called dynamic linking and it updates very quickly. But dynamic linking is not available for targeting WebAssembly, so it's like impossible. And normally you would get around that because you would just develop it locally and then later you'd compile it to WebAssembly to release it to the web. But because I'm using a web-based UI, I need I need to compile it for WebAssembly every single time. So with all that in mind, I rewrote the entire app in TypeScript. And here we have this live version. So you can see if I click here, it's rust.roguelikeracing.com. And this version is no longer going to be developed, but this is where I got to before I realized I had to change it. So over the course of about 5 months, I rewrote the entire app. And it was funny, I thought it was like, oh, I'm just like copying the code to a different language. It'll probably take 2 months, maybe 3. No, it took 5 months, and there was a lot of reasons for that. Some of it just personal life reasons, but also it just takes a long time to. I already did know TypeScript and I was familiar with it, but I had to learn the whole Babylon game engine, which is 3D graphics here. You can see in the background, and a lot of the stuff, or a good amount of it, like the styling for the menu, I could just copy that over because I was using something called Tailwind, which is compatible with both of them. But so let's see, we quick start it here. It loads the models. You can see they loaded part by part. And it does look a little bit different. you can see the default shadows. I mean, there's no shadows turned on here. I can turn it on, but I was having a bug where the leg shadows weren't showing, but it's just like their torso shadows and their head. So I just turned that off. The lighting, I mean, it looks quite nice in Bevy. Uh, for some reason, there's a skeleton way over there. I don't know about that. Interesting. Uh, I haven't touched this code in months, but yeah. So here's the version we're going to work on from now on. A little bit different things, like you can see the colors and stuff, but everything is pretty much the same. Capabilities, you can drop items, pick up items, use, I don't think you can use this because they have full mana. Yep. So I don't know, let's explore here. We got the monsters, we're using the same type of models and everything. Um, oh, right, I fixed this locally yesterday, but yeah, so it's supposed to tell me that 2 is mana, but I was like using greater than instead of greater than equals, or actually I was using just the wrong formula. There's a function that is calculating the base mana for a thing, but your mana cost for an ability is based on not only the base mana cost, but also that character's level and what level the spell is. So it should actually say it costs 3 mana. But yeah, so here we go. We got the little offhand animation. Instead of a missing animation, we just have them wave. It's not really a spell casting, but it's something that looks okay. So yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Not enough mana because we already casted it. We'll attack with the offhand, and it's looking good. Let's actually use healing and absolutely destroy this guy. 20 damage, yeah. So I got the combat log, and yeah, so obviously like the weapons are just always is 2 swords no matter what you're wearing. Your equipment always looks the same no matter what you're wearing, but we've set up the code that it can change. So now we just need somebody to make some sick 3D models for the game. And the next thing I think I'll work on is persistence. So right now, if you just refresh your browser or disconnect, you'll lose your entire game and all your characters will be deleted. But what would be awesome is if you could keep your characters. So I need to make a login system and database for all that stuff. Let's descend to the next floor. We got different type of monsters on the lower floors. There's a good amount of models. There's probably like 5 or 6 different models. And the Babylon game engine made it actually a lot easier to do a lot of things. Like to click on a mesh and select it. I'm pretty sure Bevy had a plugin for that I never got into, but this is like so built in, like to click and select it. I have not implemented it, but I read about it. And what else? I made a whole tutorial on how to do the modular characters. In this one, we died. Oh no. Yeah, in Babylon, so there was like limited resources on that, but there's a lot of good help on the forums. Uh, Bevy has really good Discord for help on that. But in any case, next is going to be logins and persistence, and we'll see what the next year has to hold. But it's been a year of developing this game, and this is what we have so far. So uh, looking forward to more progress updates in the future. Thanks for taking a look at this project, and I'll hope to see you in future videos. This has been Snowden from the Mike Silverman YouTube channel. Have a great day. Goodbye.